Hello, everyone, and welcome to the AdCast, a podcast for the study of modern visual culture. I'm your ace attorney, Soup.
And I'm your ace prosecutor, Renu.
This week, AT stands for Attorney's Turnabout, because we'll be talking about Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. But before we get into that, what have we been up to?
Boy, it's been a hot second since we've chatted.
That's true. We recorded the last episode a while ago, and then I disappeared for about a month, and yeah. So
Yeah.
how have you been in that time, Renu?
I've been fine. Work has been really a lot this past week, especially because I had a deadline today,
exciting.
actually. Yeah. So that's kind of done-ish. I'll wrap that up next week. But in the meantime, we also took in a new foster kitty.
Nice.
He was like a stray that was hanging out in an apartment complex, and the apartment complex charged $100 per month pet rent on top of a $300 pet deposit. And so the lady who found him really wanted to take him in, but she couldn't afford it because she had a kid, and she had to support her family. So she had posted about anyone who might be able to take him in, because especially that particular night, it was going to rain and be especially cold that night. And so my roommate responded to the post, and we took him in, and he's been a real sweetheart who is also super, he has sniffed out all of the catnip we've had in the house and just exploded it everywhere.
God. Oh my god.
And so then my roommate hid a bag, somewhere in the kitchen, and he still found it, and he exploded all over the kitchen counter. And so we just cleaned up catnip from the kitchen today before we started recording.
Oh my.
But
that
otherwise,
sounds like quite a lot.
yeah, I think that's basically his only bad behavior that we found so far. Otherwise, he's super sweet, and he's very cuddly. He's super chill considering he's maybe almost a year old, And so he's still got a bit of that kitten energy and playfulness, but otherwise he's kind of king of the castle. All right, this is some new digs. I like this.
Yep. The only problem is a druggie.
He is a hardcore drug addict at such a young age.
Weed.
But actually, right after I got home, I decided to take a nap, and he was just big cuddles. He had his face pressed up against mine as I was sleeping. So he's very, very cute.
Cute.
Yeah, he's like a gray tabby with white socks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah. So, we got him for a while. I guess we got him set up as for an appointment to get fixed and all that, and checked out at the vet. So, new foster.
Nice. Very nice.
Yep. I think that's about basically what I've been up to. Oh, I beat Monster Hunter World finally as well.
Oh, nice. Just in time for Monster Hunter Rise.
Exactly. I already got my copy of it, so I'm ready to break it open this weekend.
oh man, I'm ready to just lose Renu to the universe. Just be like, hey Renu, it's time to record the next episode of the podcast.
I got one more monster. Don't interrupt me.
I can't. I have to hunt. I must hunt.
The hunt. It calls.
Monster Hunter is on such a weird schedule for me, because I feel and this is partially because I don't play Monster Hunter, even though it has always been kind of an intriguing game to me, and one that I've always wanted to play at some point.
Sure.
But it's very odd because and this might have to do with my perception of time, but it feels like a new Monster Hunter game comes out every 2 seconds. I feel we were just talking about Monster Hunter World, and suddenly hey, there's a new one. I'm like, what? There's a new one? How fast do they crank these things out?
Let's see. When did Monster Hunter World come out?
That's a good question.
Oh, 2017. All right, so
2017. So 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not too bad. I think because they released Iceborne. I think.
Yeah, that's right. I guess so. No, you're right.
Yeah.
Well,
you never get to stop, you just keep going.
It's true. I mean, it's one of those things that's people really like Monster Hunter, but people also don't realize just how popular it is in Japan, where it's like the mega hit that people buy consoles for, right?
Yeah.
Like Monster Hunter is to Japan what like Call of Duty is or was to like the United States in like, the 2010s, right? I feel like, I mean, they still sell a shit ton of copies, but I feel like the relevance of it as a game that people like really go out of their way to get has kind of fallen off. But like, yeah, I mean, there's probably many reasons for that. Like Monster Hunter is a delightful game where you hunt giant dinosaurs and get your ass handed to you, and Call of Duty is a game where you commit war crimes. So
yeah, you know.
maybe we're done with war crimes, but not done with dinosaurs. I don't think we'll ever be done with dinosaurs, but
it's like animal crimes,
right?
You're hunting and carving up these animals for their parts.
Well, I guess the question is like in Monster Hunter, right? Are you disrupting the ecosystem by hunting all these monsters, or are you?
It's supposed to be preserving the ecosystem.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like you're doing some kind of service. I don't know what the setup is that you can just go out and hunt like 40 plesiosauruses or whatever. But evidently, if you can do that, there are obviously too many predators, I guess.
Essentially, it's it gets to a point where the monsters are so large and disruptive. They're like, yo, this is going to destroy the island that we live on. We got to kill this thing or make it like turn around and go in the other direction. So there's some quests like that too.
Right.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I imagine you would like it once you got into it, since you like stuff like Dark Souls and stuff like that too. So,
yeah. I mean, it's always been one of those games that I've been curious about and have wanted to play, but traditionally I've just not had a console for it, right? Because it hasn't really been as available stateside until very recently.
Yeah.
Whereas in Japan it was just all over the place. But but the problem is that now I'm at a point where it's just hitting me where I like just don't have like a lot of time to sink into a game that is like, ostensibly a lot of grinding.
Yeah, there is a lot of it. I agree.
Right, because it's like as fun as it is to hunt a big monster and progress your items and stuff, and I do love all of that stuff. But I already play like like one or two games like that concurrently, so it's hard to find time to put another one in there, as well as like right now I feel like I've been playing a lot more video game than I have been in a while. There was like definitely a month's long period after I played like after I kind of stopped playing Overwatch, where I feel like I didn't really play that many video games. And I feel like I've suddenly kind of gotten back into playing a lot of games.
That's
mostly
cool.
because some of my friends have been playing Hearthstone Battlegrounds, which is a I don't know if you know what like an auto chess is, but it's like an auto chess game.
I have heard of auto chess games. I don't really know what goes into them.
Yeah, well, it's basically you just like set up a you set up an army, I guess, and then you duke it out with other people who have set up their army, and then every turn you get to like change and like upgrade and sell stuff. It's really fun. It's really fun.
That's interesting.
And, like,
yeah.
Well, it's fun because it's like very random. You don't really know what you're gonna get, but there's an element of fun to that. I think Hearthstone has more randomness to it than something like Teamfight Tactics, which is like the original like auto chess, I guess. But yeah, it's been a very good time. I have played maybe way too much of it. I started playing because and this is like the big thing, right, where I have been away for the past month, and as a result I went without my laptop, specifically because I was like, okay, if I just bring the iPad, I can get work done, and I won't be distracted by video games.
Yeah.
This was like the big thing for me. I did not want to be distracted by video games. I was like, okay, I'll take this opportunity to, work on my work, and I will take this opportunity to catch up on like my YouTube backlog and my manga backlog, and then my friend did a terrible thing to me. Where he was like, you know what's a good game for iPad? A good game to play mobile? Hearthstone Battlegrounds. And I was like, I mean, I guess I could try it. And like a couple of games, I was like, it was over. I was hooked.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was a problem. I did get, the work I needed to done.
Okay, that's good.
So that was nice. But I did end up playing a lot of Battlegrounds. And now that I'm home, I play a lot of it as well. In addition to that, I've been playing a lot of Granblue recently. There's a lot of because the anniversary event just came in and has more or less gone. There's a lot of like new updates to the game. So, there's lots of stuff to do. Like they added a special buff to the sort of end game raid, so you can just do it solo instead of having to like rely on other people, which is very nice. It has been a godsend for me. It's not super efficient because you need to farm a lot of materials to activate it, but I would rather do that than the social anxiety of like, oh no, it's a 6-person raid. I'm 1/6 of this raid. If I fail the raid, everybody dies. And I would rather just, anyway. But also my friends have been playing Payday recently, Payday 2, which is it's a pretty old game at this point. I think it's launched in like 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
But we recently got back into it because we were just like, hey, what if we just like started playing Payday again? Because I sunk a ton of time into that game back in the day, right? I have like 400 some hours in it, I think, and I haven't even been playing it recently because my friends have been playing, but I've been busy because I've been sitting here like, oh no, I have a deadline to meet. No, but as soon as that's over, I'm gonna start playing that again. So it feels like I've been kind of playing a lot of video games recently, which is I've also obviously we've been streaming Ace Attorney. We started Ace Attorney 2. Yeah, that's super fun. Ace Attorney 2, I think, is the one that I have started the most times. I have finished it at least once, but I don't think I've ever finished it past that. Just because I think it has some of the weakest cases.
Oh, okay.
The last case is good in Ace Attorney 2, though.
Okay.
And then I'm really stoked for Ace Attorney 3 because that's great. I mean, I think the middle case in that one lags, but well. Yeah.
I've been really enjoying our playthrough of the Ace Attorney games.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
I like that. I like having a because here's the thing about my streaming schedule is that like I stream at such inconsistent like weird times that I like having a regular stream that like I can kind of gauge how many people are going to show up. We show up at the same time. We have a schedule. Sometimes we're a little bit late gathering, but we got stuff going on. And then we get to just like play Ace Attorney for a couple hours. It's nice. I like that.
Yeah, it is nice.
I will say it is very funny though because it's on Saturday night. It means that it is much more difficult to just kind of guerrilla record an episode the day before it's supposed to go live.
Yeah, we don't really do that anymore.
Which is why we didn't do why this episode did not go live when it was technically scheduled to, and is a week late. Because we just couldn't. The reason being that I've been away for a month, by the way, is I went up to Oregon to visit my partner, and then we moved down together back into my parents' house.
Be cute.
Yeah. That has been that it was just kind of an entire ordeal, like packing up a house and then like stuffing it into a U-Haul and then driving down all the way. Luckily, my partner's parents were nice enough to drive the U-Haul down while we could just drive the
That's
car
nice.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long of a drive is it?
It's about 10-ish hours.
Okay.
Like in that range, right? From Portland area to like Bay Area, it's about 10-ish hours, give or take.
Yeah.
And which is funny because like it's not that much longer than, for instance, if you drove from the Bay Area to like LA. So like Northern and Southern California is like just that length.
Right, yeah.
It's just long.
Yes.
But yeah, that was oh God. I mean, it was very tiring, right?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I still don't think I've fully shrugged off all of the like fatigue from moving, but that's just because, you know, I've got like a weak, terrible body that's like out of shape that I have not taken like extremely good care of. But yeah, so that's been exciting because we obviously, because I live in the shed now, and that's weirdly I like the shed. I kind of like it because it's like I feel like I'm even further away from my parents, right? Which isn't to say that like, you know, I don't like living with my parents. It's very nice living with my parents. But there's just kind of like the pressure of having your parents hovering in the living room, like one door separated from your room, is like kind of a lot. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, I get that.
Because like, you know, it's their house. They're hanging out in the living room, but I'm still just like, my parents are there. I gotta behave.
You're like, you got like a compromise between having your own place but also being your family.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, it just means that like the like I it's nice. I get to stay away from the prying eye of my family. Which isn't to say that they're nosy necessarily. It's just that you know, it's your parents are like a weird entity to you, I think. When you become an adult, right? Especially if you still live with them, you're just like, I don't know what the sort of expectation here is. I'm technically still your child, but like, shrug emoji, I guess. But yeah, that's been nice. We came down with Philip, and he was very stressed for a couple of days. He didn't like being in a new place. Everything was like loud. Everything was like too warm and sunny. You know, moving from Oregon in like early spring to California is kind of wild because we were like sleeping, and outside it was like below freezing, and then like we drove down to California and it's suddenly like 75 degrees outside, and we're like, oh it's so warm, why is it summer already? We just happened to come down during like kind of a heat spike. It should normalize a little bit more to like average spring temperatures, but like it was like 84 today, right?
Wow.
So it's very warm.
Yeah.
It's very much a system shock, I would say. Coming back to California after being away for a month. It's not because like when I left it was like, you know, like 50, 60 outside, and then I went up there and it was colder than that, and then I came down and it was way warmer.
Yeah, I mean, like a near 30-degree difference will definitely shock anyone.
But anyway, my body's still adjusting to that. It's still kind of I think part of it is also adjusting back to my like nocturnal sleeping schedule, so that I can, you know, take care of Bark and everything. That has been I think that's been healing me, weirdly enough. Yeah, it's my natural state. Yeah, so Philip was very stressed for a couple of days. He was just as shocked as I was at the temperature, especially because his fur is like really dense and thick.
Oh, I'm sure.
Which is not awesome for like California, but he's probably gonna just start gradually shedding it.
Yeah. His coat will adjust.
Yeah, so basically, I moved into the shed and my partner moved into what used to be my room, and that's where Philip lives. And he was very stressed for a couple of days, but now he's, very settled, because you can tell he's settled because he starts being a menace. He's
Yes, yes.
like you leave him in the room and he goes, why would you do this? Why would you leave me? How could you leave me? Come back.
You
And
don't
it's
love me anymore.
you don't love me. Yeah. On the first one of the first nights that we were here, Bark actually, because Bark still really likes going into what used to be my room because he's just like, oh, this is Soup's room. I want to go to Soup's room. And so he managed to slip in one of the first nights, and Philip was not having it. He was so upset. He was like hissing and like he was like hissing and growling. I had to pick up Bark and skedaddle.
Orange kitty fight.
Yeah, I don't think Bark cared like at all.
Right.
Yeah, so I had to separate the two boys at first because Philip was super stressed. But now very recently they have started to get along. You know?
Oh, I can't wait for the kitty cuddle pictures.
Yeah, I don't know if they're ever gonna like cuddle.
I want it.
But they are definitely not fighting anymore.
That's good.
They did a lot of little sniffing at each other through the window. Because Bark is an outdoor cat and Philip is not allowed outside because we will never get him back. But yeah, and then he came in the other day and they like sniffed each other and they seemed to vibe, you know. They like flopped and sniffed each other. They sniff each other a lot, actually. Philip is like, what the fuck is this? Why do you smell like this? You're a very stinky old man. And Bark is just sitting there like, I gotta put up with this, I guess.
This youngin'.
Yeah. But yeah, it's that's been nice. I really like that. I enjoy that my cats are getting along, right? Whenever they are allowed to hang out together, they like Bark will just kind of wander around the house and Philip will like trot after him. It's very cute.
Oh. And
then Bark's like, I want to go outside, and we have to be like, Philip, you can't go outside. And he's like, I want to go on an adventure. But you know, we're very fearful for what would happen if he went outside. Bark, we know, is like, I mean, it's not good for a cat to be outside, but like Bark is, you know, he knows his way around. He always comes back. Technically speaking, he's not even our cat. So, you know, there's stuff to be said about that. But yeah, like I'm happy. I'm happy that they're getting along.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the like big thing that I've been up to. Obviously, the move has been exhausting. I feel like I haven't quite even fully decompressed yet. Because like, you know, obviously you change your living situation even if you're living at home, and things feel a little bit weird and different, right? Like I moved from my house to another my house, and then that was just weird for like a couple weeks, right?
Sure.
Before you really get settled.
Yeah.
The only really inconvenient thing is that like I have to like trundle outside to go to the bathroom.
Right.
I have to trundle outside and then go into the main house and then go to the bathroom, which is a little annoying, but not a deal breaker, obviously. Like I lived in a dorm room for a year. I can handle this. This is not like a big issue. Yeah, I will say it's very funny though because my parents keep shaming me for coming to the main house. They're like, yeah, you gonna go like make some food? You gonna pee?
Why?
What?
Why?
Like they're like shaming me for how often I go to the main house, and I'm like, you guys know I live here, right? Like I know I live in the shed, but I also live in this house.
You don't have a kitchen or a bathroom out there. Do they want you to just do it in the yard or what?
I don't know. My family just roasts me for whatever. I'll just take whatever opportunity, I guess. It's fine.
It's almost like you live there or something.
Yeah. Just, I mean, God, we wouldn't want anybody to think I live here, you know? Yeah. So anyway, let's get into talking about ye old topic then.
Yeah.
Because that's all I've been up to. We're gonna be talking about Ace Attorney, which was just kind of an economical like topic, honestly. Because we have been playing Ace Attorney,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So obviously it's time to talk about the first one. If you want to watch us play the first Ace Attorney game, you can go look at the VODs. They're all on my YouTube channel.
Woo woo.
So, Ace Attorney is, for those of you who are unfamiliar, and I don't know who is unfamiliar with Ace Attorney at this point, but it's basically a detective lawyer game where you are a lawyer detective, and you must do lawyering, but in the process of doing lawyering, you do detectiving.
We do some questionable lawyering and some definitely questionable detectiving.
Yeah. Okay, so it is very funny, and it's worth mentioning now that the director of the game, when he created it, was very much like, I want to make a mystery game that is set in court, not I want to make a court game, right? So it really makes sense when you look at it, because the way the trials proceed is not even remotely close to anything resembling, real life law. It's kind of a legal dystopic nightmare. And yeah, right? Like there's a 3-day trial limit, so trials can only go to 3 days. There's a lot of trial by ambush, so like people are just like popping evidence left and right. They're like, I found this and slipped it into my pocket. Here's the evidence. Bam, take that. And people have to just accept it as legitimate. Until like the last case of the first game where we're like, it's evidence law is very important. And then never again we talk about evidence law. Ever.
It's like exhausting, but also just very funny because it's on brand with the rest of the game, and the fact that you said that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
it's like it's a game that plays very fast and loose, and it's very wacky.
Yes. Like it wouldn't quite make sense for them to take the law so seriously, but then have all this incredibly colorful cast of characters and hijinks that they get up to. Like I kind of like that they take like the more parody comedic approach to the law.
Yeah. I mean, there is and this is the thing, right? Is that this is an important thing to consider when talking about and interpreting art, which is that it can be interpreted in any way, regardless of what the author thinks about it or intended when they created it, right? So a lot of people kind of have mentioned that you can very much read Ace Attorney as a satirical piece about the kind of unfairness of the law and the way that the system is stacked against people. And it's not, I would say, like that much of a stretch to really examine it in that way. Obviously.
I don't think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like people are caught in unfortunate circumstances, and they are going into a system that is not designed for them to succeed, right? All of the evidence points to them being the murderer, and they have to be like, no, and like it's funny because like when you really consider it, like Phoenix Wright has to prove that someone else in the audience is the murderer, or like one of the witnesses is the murderer, or else he cannot get a not guilty verdict, right?
He has to prove their motive, their method, like everything.
He has to force them into a logical corner where they will like do a breakdown where they're just like, you're
and they
right,
confess,
I am the murderer, I did the murder.
Yeah,
I had to do it. I had to do it. I had to do it to him. So it's very silly, but it's also very much possible to read it as a critique of not just the Japanese law system, but like the law in general. I will say Japan has a very high conviction rate for like prosecutorial cases, but that's because they don't bring cases to court unless they are sure that they will get a conviction. It's actually very interesting because it shares this similarity with like U.S. courts, where U.S. courts 95 to 97% of cases are not settled in court, right? They're just negotiated outside of court, right?
Yeah, settlements and stuff.
Settlements, plea deals, all that kind of stuff, right? But when they're in court, I feel like it kind of can pretty easily go either way. I feel like when things go to court and they're heard in front of a judge and a jury, unless they're like really silly or ridiculous or just kind of made in bad faith, right? They, I feel like, have a little bit more balance to them. I know, obviously, we have the history of the racism embedded into U.S. law to contend with, obviously, right? But like Japan has like a 99% like conviction rate, and everything else they just negotiate a deal outside of court, and that is, I feel like, slightly different, right? Because it means that prosecutors in Japan, it almost feels more like they're putting on a show, right? Because it's not like, because when things go to court, it's not like they're going to court to prove like this or that. It's more like they're just showing, right? It's like a show. It's like a performance, right? And I like that the main sort of antagonists of Ace Attorney are, people who like you have two different prosecutors in the first game. You have Miles Edgeworth, who is a very good prosecutor, but you can tell that he is not like his mentor, Manfred von Karma, because von Karma wants the conviction. He doesn't care about whether people are guilty or not. He just wants the conviction.
Right.
Whereas Edgeworth wants to find the truth, right? He wants to he has deep personal reasons for wanting to put criminals in places where they cannot hurt people, and it's his job to prove that. But he's not about to go out of his way to shoot an attorney because he lost a court case, right?
Wait, what about Winston Payne? He's a prosecutor.
Ah, yes, old Winston Payne. I mean, he sure is a prosecutor.
The true mastermind.
The true mastermind, right? So, I mean, reading it as a satirical piece about, the law is I would say, a very valid way of reading it. But that's that's just kind of something I wanted to touch on, because like it is important to talk about that. The intention of it was just to mostly be a mystery.
I like that. I think it's funny.
Drama series,
yeah.
Or a mystery drama game that happens to be set in court, which I think is kind of fun, honestly. You play fast and loose with the rules. You break a lot of laws for sure. It's definitely like, it's movie court, right? Things just happen.
Yes,
and they're
definitely
allowed to
movie
happen
court.
like that. And to be honest, I'm completely okay with that.
It's very funny. A game. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a game. It's a very exaggerated game.
Yeah.
I'm not even expecting it to be consistent about its own rules.
No.
It's just kind of, it's very like Calvin Ball, right? Like it's just kind of like we're making up the rules as we go along.
Yeah.
Like the judge can pass down a verdict and then someone can be like, objection.
Yeah. It's happened.
And you're like, what? You just did oh. But you go along with it because it's fun. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's great. I love how much Ace Attorney commits to just being like absolutely off the wall.
Yeah.
Where like all of the characters are just way larger than life. They're really vibrant and dynamic. They're all of their names are puns. They have like very distinct voices. It's pretty easy to tell. Like this is the thing, right? Where we are playing through Ace Attorney and we're voicing all the characters, but it is very easy to tell how to voice a character just from the way they come across.
Yeah.
And actually, this is funny though, because there is a detail that I really like about Ace Attorney, where the sound that it makes when the text is going, it's pitched differently for each character. Each character has their own unique pitch to it.
Yep.
So you get kind of the impression of a voice, even though you're not hearing one. I think that's really cool. And like the reason this is so cool and important is because the original Ace Attorney came out for the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're working with very limited space.
Yeah.
And the fact that they kind of pulled it off is pretty cool. I love the way that Ace Attorney has evolved based on, the limitations of its hardware.
Yeah.
I would honestly go as far as to say that I almost prefer okay, it's not almost. I do prefer the pixel style of the original games to the remake where they just kind of draw everything and like they like trace over it and they like kind of smudge the color. I think they could have done a much better job to make it look pretty.
Yeah, I do. I like the sprites better. The pixel sprites too, yeah.
the pixel sprites are much better because they are, they're working with what they have, but it also looks good, right? And it's meant for a screen that has significantly less pixel density than a modern screen. Like if you ever look at like a CRTV or like a Game Boy Advance SP screen, right? Like you can see the like pixels, and so you get a different effect when it's on that kind of screen. But even still, like Ace Attorney looks way better like in the older games than in the current ones, because they just, for some reason, I think it's because they wanted to like stick to the style as close as possible, didn't really commit that hard to doing anything with it. I think they should have either committed to just using the pixel art or committed to like very high quality like new drawings, right?
Yeah.
Like that would have been, in my opinion, like the way to go about it.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of sad because like I will say, when the trilogy launched, and I believe it launched on Switch, or something along those lines, it looked, I think, even worse on on PC. It looks a little bit better now, I think, but I'm not 100% confident about that, so I can't even speak on that.
Wow.
But yeah, the visual style of it is good, right? As a game, in general, as like a series, but the trilogy itself as a remake, or as a like HDification, I think loses a lot of the character that the original has in a way that's kind of unfortunate. It looks like the problem to me, I think, is it's just too smudgy.
Yeah, it looks like they kind of used a blur brush or something like that for the shading, or an airbrush.
It feels like the people who made the pixel art like knew what they were doing and knew how to make art.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
And it feels like they just kind of tasked some like interns to do it at like, the Capcom studios or whatever. It's like, okay, we need a high definition Ace Attorney. And you can draw? No? All right, you do it.
Yeah, it's a shame because the character designs, of course, are so strong that they kind of carry the artwork, which is, they're supposed to work hand in hand, the design and the quality of the art.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
I don't know, maybe they thought that it wouldn't matter because it's supposed to be on a small screen, so you wouldn't notice if it was just a drawn over sprite, or I don't know.
I mean, the Switch you can put into a television though.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of excuse they came up with, but I don't know if they ever explained their decision, but I just don't agree with it. It just doesn't look very good. Yeah.
But the game itself is fantastic. I mean, here's the thing though. It's like, it's just, and not to complain about this like too much, but like it's just sad because in a game that is like as sparse as a visual novel, or and one might argue that it's not a visual novel but a kinetic novel, because there's no branching paths, etc., right?
Sure.
It's just kind of like, it's like a third of the entire thing, right?
Oh yeah,
like you
definitely.
have writing, you have art, and you have sound.
Yeah. Yep.
And like those things matter a lot more when you don't have like quote unquote like gameplay, like interactive gameplay, right? It's not like Danganronpa where you just have mini games.
You have mini games, yeah,
mysteries or whatever, right? You're like, I gotta brain blast. I gotta do a hangman crossword puzzle, or else I can't brain blast. But the game itself has always been one of my favorite game series. It just has its own unique charm to it. It works within its limitations very well. It's, there's not like a lot of interactivity, but it's fun. And it's written in a way that is enjoyable to read. And, and this is one of those things I want to touch on later, right? About the like localization of it. People are very divided on the localization. Some people are really for it, and some people really dislike it. I think I used to be in a place where I really, really didn't like it, but I've kind of come around to it where I honestly think it's kind of fun. And I think part of that has been the process of like learning about translation and what it means to translate. But anyway, I'm gonna put a pin in that. Let's just talk very broadly about like what characters were your favorites. Like, did you have any in particular that you really liked?
I would say, at least from the first game, probably the star of the game is more so like Miles Edgeworth. Because he has this
for sure.
huge arc. Like, he just did the most character development out of, I'd say, anyone in the first game. And so you just end up liking him a whole lot. Yeah, and I think it's so funny that I guess the most likable aspects of him came around because one of the artists, Kumiko Suekane, drew a little comic of him liking the Steel Samurai, and so then his character ended up being written, rather than like this hardcore prosecutor with no weaknesses, to a guy that was really cute with like secret weaknesses that come out later on in the game. And I was like, I love that.
Yeah.
So he's definitely one of my favorites from this game for sure. Gumshoe I love as well.
Oh, how could you not like Gumshoe?
I know,
right?
He kind of like, in the first case, he kind of starts off like, a little bit hostile towards you because, you're a defense attorney and he's with the prosecution or whatever. But then he really comes around later, and then he's like your bro in your corner.
Yeah. That is one thing I really, really like. Especially about the first game is that Miles Edgeworth has a character arc. And you're right though, like he definitely is more of the star than Phoenix is, because Phoenix is like the viewpoint character.
Yeah.
In many ways he's kind of like the stand-in for you, which is funny because I recently saw a tweet where they showed him in like a costume. I think it was it's like a CG from maybe it was part of an animation from one of the later games where he's dressed as a pirate, but like because you can't see his hair, he just looks like a normal guy. Like he looks like a random male NPC. And I love that. It's so funny to me. I love that Phoenix is just a man. He's just a guy.
He's a dude.
Phoenix, right? A dude. Miles definitely has the strongest character arc, and I feel like I think that is a lot of what is missing from the second game, because Edgeworth is not the primary prosecutor. I don't know if you've ever played Ace Attorney 2, but like he's not the primary prosecutor, so you don't really get a ton of him.
Yeah.
He does show up. But I will say that I think the third one does a really good job of filling in a lot of character stuff. I think even about Phoenix Wright, actually, especially. The fact that Ace Attorney 3 really dives into Phoenix's backstory. You get a little bit more backstory about Mia, which is like really cool, because she's like this tutorial character in the first game, and then she dies.
Yeah.
And she keeps showing up to like help you, but she's dead, and you don't really know anything about her other than she was actually a spirit medium also, right?
Yeah.
And so now she can channel herself into other people's bodies, specifically her sister's body. But like, I like that Ace Attorney 3 went back and filled that in. Obviously, we're not going to talk too much about the later ones. We're just talking about the first game. I have played the series somewhat extensively, and I have many feelings about Apollo Justice, the fourth game, and then every game after that. Like, it's very funny because you have the first 3 games, and then you have this like generation shift with Apollo Justice, and then you have another generation shift, and that one I don't necessarily agree with, but I also don't super dislike it either. There's some things I don't like about it, but I need to stop talking about this. So
you can't help yourself.
I can't. I really can't. I love Ace Attorney. I mean, it's one of those games where I don't like bring it up super often, unprompted, but is one of the series I probably have played the most games of or whatever, right? Like it's one of the games that occupy the same like sphere as like Fire Emblem in my brain, where I'm just like, I gotta play the new Ace Attorney game. I really like Gumshoe as well. I think he's one of my favorite characters. Obviously, Miles Edgeworth.
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of the characters in Ace Attorney 1 feel a lot flatter to me than some of the later ones in the later games. But I actually really like Damon Gant as a villain. I think he's really
that's
good.
what I was going to say, too. Is like, outside of the main cast, I think he is one of the strongest, like, villains, but also just, like, the, NPC, quote-unquote, cast or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
no, he's awesome.
I think it's because, largely speaking, like, the 5th case of Ace Attorney 1, and I've mentioned this on stream, but the 5th case is Rise from the Ashes, I think, which is the one that is about Damon Gant and the police and all that. And it's a very cool case because it actually does like explore some more of the setting of Ace Attorney.
Yeah.
And gives you some insight into, the procedural sort of law enforcement stuff. And actually it's very funny because that case specifically says some very pointed things about law enforcement, which I find hilarious. But like that case was written probably like I wouldn't say a decade, but like a long time, maybe a decade even, actually. A long time after the rest of the game was, because it was a case they included for the DS remake of the first Ace Attorney game, which I don't know exactly what the release timeline is. I didn't look it up. But you can tell that you can very clearly tell the distinction between the last case and then the like bonus case, right? Because suddenly they're like, oh, by the way, you can check things in 3 dimensions. Oh, yeah.
The mechanics get an upgrade.
The mechanics get an upgrade. The graphics are like, oh, it's 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
There's like an entire sequence where you watch a video 4 times.
Oh my god, that video with the freaking music.
Yeah,
the
right,
mascot.
with the blue badger.
Golly. And the character designs, you can tell too, are quite different.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the thing is that after the first game, I think they committed a lot harder to having characters that were even more.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because I think they put the first game out and they're like, these characters are like, larger than life. They're pretty distinct and they have their own voice and they're interesting. But they're very striking designs, but they're also very like straightforward, like one note. They're not meant to like be there for a long time because they're NPCs in a case,
right?
And it's only the characters that have that show up regularly that get more development, like Gumshoe and like Edgeworth, or Maya, or people like that, right? But because the 5th case has the benefit of being released after those games, the characters are a lot more dynamic, right? You have like Damon Gant, who is absolutely a fucking vampire, who's just like, I'm the most intimidating man you've ever met, and
he sure is.
You have a lunch lady who is a former detective who is named the Cough Up Queen, and you have a literal cowboy for no reason. You just have a cowboy there. Why is he there?
A man transported from the heart of Texas.
Yeah, straight from Texas.
You have Officer Meekins. You know what? I love the
Officer
animation
Meekins.
that they put into that case as well. It's like it's good. Whenever Meekins slams his fist down into his into his hand, like I'm like, oh my god, it's so smooth.
It's that's one of those things also where because the next couple of games have some room to build upon the formula, the animations become wild, right? Because you know, like Phoenix has his like, you know, basic animations, right? He's just your basic lawyer man. He does the finger pointing, he does the paper slapping, he has the like think face, and then Edgeworth pretty much has like the same, but like slightly different, personalized to him, of course. You know, he has a slam, he has his like shock face. He's like, ugh.
His
he
mad
has his, like,
face,
gritting teeth. He's like, ugh.
Yeah, angry.
But then the prosecutors just get wilder. He's like, and I find this is very funny. They, very specifically, they were like, we wanted a different prosecutor for the second game because we can't just have a prosecutor who is supposed to be really good and lose every case. They're like, we need to give Miles a break.
Poor Miles.
Poor Miles. But like
reputation is ruined.
but the fact that like Edgeworth and Von Karma are quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
They're dressed to the nines.
Yes.
And then Von Karma is like more because he has like animations where he like slams the table and roars and he like slams his face on the back wall or whatever.
Oh god, yeah.
But like Franziska Von Karma, who is the main prosecutor of the second game, has a whip and she has a bunch of whip animations. And the prosecutor of the third game also has a lot of different animations. It's very, very cool. I like it a lot. And then they only get weirder from there. You have Clavier in the fourth game, who is a rock star, so he has a lot of air guitar like animations. In the game after that, which I think is Dual Destinies. I think that was the first game after Apollo Justice. You just have a samurai. And then in the game after that, you just have like a spiritualist ? I don't actually even really know how to describe the prosecutors in that game. But anyway, I
feel like so much of this series is built upon the audience reacting with laughter and also confusion. Like,
oh yeah, no, for sure. 100%. Like, you're gonna get lost at some point. You're like, okay, they're bringing a parrot in to testify. Okay.
But you go with it.
But you go
so
with
funny.
it. I love that. It feels like by the last case, they really start finding their voice with how they want to like run this, because the first case is like a little silly. You know, you got Larry, he's very over the top. The second case, I feel like, is like a little more serious. Obviously, your mentor dies. You have Mia, who is like grieving the death of her sister.
Maya.
And I like, or Maya, yes, that's right. Maya, who's grieving the death of her sister Mia. And I like that, you know, you can really take those moments, and they're like amplified by just how like well they work within, you know, the space. Like they have a special theme for Maya, and they have a special theme for like Maya and her sister. I think that the song is literally called Sisters, or something like that. And so whenever they play that, you're like, oh wow. And then they have this entire game where they build up this relationship between Phoenix and Maya as like lawyer and help. I don't know what to call her, really, like legal counsel assistant. And then the end of the game actually legitimately feels like you're saying like goodbye. It feels like the separation of two people who have become friends with each other, and
Yeah.
it's honestly it's kind of nice. I like that despite the fact that Ace Attorney is so over the top and ridiculous, they will still have like moments where characters are emotional, and because the game is so over the top, characters can be more emotional, and it will read as like, you know, as fine because it's in line with the rest of the game. But you still
Yeah.
get these like legitimately kind of like heartfelt moments, and
Mm-hmm.
you have these like kind of like quiet moments where Phoenix is like contemplating, and he's just like, man, things just haven't been the same since Maya left. I don't really want to do lawyering right now.
I haven't worked in 3 months.
I haven't worked in 3 months. Phoenix Wright doesn't. We may live in some kind of legal hellscape, but I guess we live in some kind of vague utopia where Phoenix can just not do work and pay rent for 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
All of the characters' names are puns in the original Japanese, and they get translated as puns somewhat differently, but still the same. Like Phoenix Wright, you get it. It's
Yeah.
But his Japanese name is Ryuichi Naruhodo, and Naruhodo means I understand.
なるほど。
Yeah, Naruhodo. I don't know any of the other ones off the top of my head, but most of them are puns. And it's actually very funny.
I actually really like the translation work that they did into the pun.
Into the puns and the names, yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing is that the Ace Attorney translation itself has a life of its own beyond the original games, which I think is honestly kind of nice. And they do it in a way where it's not like, you know, as ridiculous as some of the stuff that 4Kids did. I mean, obviously there's like, oh, instead of like ramen, we're gonna get burgers, right? I mean, that makes sense though in the context of like localizing for an American audience, as well as the fact that like, you know, this translation was done like a long time ago. I think the translation was done, and I want to say 2006-ish or something. It was when the DS released. Because I believe the first time I watched a playthrough of Ace Attorney, I was like 12. So that would have been like 12 or so years ago, right? Or more. Actually, I might have been even younger now that I think about it. Anyway, I don't remember when that came out, but the translation work is very impressive. And it's very divisive also because they localize things, quote unquote, and like obviously there's a there's a shorthand here where like, you know, we're talking about translating and localizing as distinct things when in reality like all translation is localization. But yeah, I like the translation of Ace Attorney. And I like the I think the thing that really makes it work for me over something like 4Kids dubs is 4Kids feels like such a like hostile corporate
it feels like they have an
thing.
agenda. Yeah,
where it's like they're like, oh, we want to take these Japanese cartoons and market them to an American audience, but they won't understand Japanese cartoons because they're for a Japanese audience, and obviously people just don't know what rice balls are. And I mean, to a certain extent, when 4Kids was like at its like, you know, peak, I would say that might actually have been true. But it is the work of people like the 4Kids Corporation that made that statement continue to be true, right? It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. The less people are exposed to you know, new cultural things, the more they will not understand them in the future, right? So the thing that gets me about that as opposed to Ace Attorney is Ace Attorney feels like it was translated by people who actually like cared about translating something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It feels like well intentioned.
Because it feels like they're translating it so that it will make sense to a Western audience, but not in a way that's like masking over like all of the Japanese isms in it.
Sure.
So much as like you know, people won't really understand ramen as like a thing. They're just like, why do these people keep getting ramen? But they will understand burgers, right? Like if you said ramen like nowadays, like I think even nowadays, I don't know if I would necessarily say that it's like a wrong choice to localize like ramen as burgers, right? Because in Japan, it's a very like not street food, but like a fast food, like, you know, you go and you get something like oily and greasy and salty for a quick meal,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like quick and cheap, and then you go, and that's what a burger is here in America. So
Yeah.
it fulfills a similar function, and like it's done in a way where it's not so callous, right? It takes great care to make sure that things still kind of make sense within
Mm-hmm.
the world. It's like they're translating it in a way that is still consistent with itself, which you cannot necessarily say for the 4K stumps. Yeah, no, it feels like it was done by people who actually cared, which I think is kind of the important thing. I will say this, and this is like kind of a and a disclaimer I do have to make about Ace Attorney whenever I talk about it at any length. But one of the people who worked on the team for Ace Attorney is basically, you know, a sexual abuser. So
Oh. Wait, and
it,
on the like a game dev or a developer in the game? Or?
Not one of the original Japanese devs, but one of the people who worked on the localization team, who's
Oh.
actually the original voice of Phoenix Wright. Ben Judd is very much a very bad person.
Oh.
That disclaimer does need to be there. I feel, and that sucks because, you know, like it's such an iconic thing. The Phoenix Wright's objection, and to have that marred by the person behind it being like such a shit person is like
so he's
like,
the voice clip.
Yeah, like as much voice acting as there is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. but that's his voice whenever we hear an objection from Phoenix.
Yeah. That being
Okay.
said, they do change voice actors. I think I don't remember when they changed them, but they do change voice actors. So anyway, that's just a disclaimer to be made about the first Ace Attorney game. Which is just like kind of like a bummer, huh?
Yeah.
It's just like always a bummer when you're like, oh, this thing I like is really cool. Oh no, someone's real shit. But I mean, as far as we know, nobody who worked on the original game like did anything like that, or
We
at
hope.
least to that extent. So at least that we know of. So, you know,
Yeah.
I guess we have that going for us. But like, yeah, Ace Attorney. I would like to talk about mechanics stuff.
Sure.
Because I think we've kind of covered how just like wackadoodle the plot is. It's very very fun.
Yes.
It's very out there. You
Mhm.
do cross-examine a parrot at one point, and it does lead you to not lose a case. Someone definitely does do a murder because they were upset at another attorney. Shrug emoji. But yeah, so Ace Attorney is a kinetic novel. I guess would be the accurate way of categorizing it. A kinetic novel, the difference being that a kinetic novel doesn't really accept like choice input in the same way that a visual novel does. Like a visual novel tends to have roots, whereas a kinetic novel is just one thing. So Ace Attorney is a kinetic novel because, like, you know, there's a right and wrong answer that will progress you to the game or not, right? It's not like certain other games kind of in a vague Phoenix Wright-ish genre, I guess. Like the Sherlock Holmes games, for instance, you can just fail them, right? It won't, but like Ace Attorney, you will just like not be able to proceed without getting the right answer. So
yeah, you get back to the loading screen or whatever.
That being said, I think that for such a limited framework, it works really well, especially because of how much care was put into making sure everything worked. Because when you're able to convey information with very few tools, I think that's very cool.
Yes, yes.
So you can tell, because like here's the thing, right? about video games, where the expectation of a video game is that the adversity will increase as your skill increases. So as you become better at the video game, it will become harder in response, right? It's like a difficulty curve, right? It's why like the level 1 or the opening boss of a JRPG has like 30 health, and then the end boss is God with 900 like 9,999 health. Ace Attorney does not have health. Well, you have health, but like your prosecutors don't have health, right?
Yeah.
Your entire goal is to reach the end of the case. That being said, the end of the case is it's interesting because it's both the like victory of like getting your client declared not guilty, but it is also in Ace Attorney specifically about the pursuit of truth, right? The case ends when the truth comes out. So it's a very interesting thing where the goal of the game is to get to the truth via proving your client innocent, which is funny because there are a lot of detective games that don't really feel like detective games. This feels like a detective game.
Yeah, right? They present you with a lot of evidence that you discover or that you can get out of a witness from questioning them or pressing them in court. And you have to link the evidence together and be able to present it at the right moments in order to get some kind of confession or to move the case forward.
Link the pieces.
Yes, exactly.
I like that there's a prosecutor there as well to provide counter arguments. I think that's really fun. I think that's a part of what really makes Ace Attorney so good, right? And it is the primary way in which Ace Attorney expresses its difficulty. And it's actually kind of a very subtle thing. Because I didn't notice it until someone pointed this out. I don't remember when, but I watched a YouTube video about like some of the better like some of the best villains in games, and somebody basically mentioned that Manfred von Karma is a great villain because his power level is off the charts for the game you're in. Right? So to kind of like explain this, when you do your first case, it's a tutorial case. So your entire thing is literally just learning how to play the game. So Winston Payne basically makes almost no objections. He will only ever respond like at the end of a cross-examination segment to usher in the next one. Whereas Miles Edgeworth will interject and like shut you down. He'll like object. He'll be like, "That's really that's not how that works, Phoenix. You know, this is ridiculous. You can't just say that, right?" So we've actually been presented with a power scale. You know, you have somebody who will not object to you at all, and then you have somebody who will and will shut you down, right?
Yeah, and like slightly above your level.
Right, exactly. And then you get to Manfred von Karma at the very end of the game after you've been like, you know, learning Miles Edgeworth and like going back and forth with him. You get to Manfred von Karma, who is like so difficult because he's like Miles Edgeworth, but more. He won't let you talk. He will shut you down at every opportunity. He overpowers the judge. He prepares his witnesses like very tightly so they don't release information. And then when you try to press them for information, he shuts you down. Right? So then you're presented with like the end of the power scale, right? You're like, this is the final boss of the game.
Yeah.
And you can tell it's the final boss of the game intuitively because he's so hard to crack.
Yeah, and the when you have your little life bar, the consequences are a lot more dire when you present the wrong evidence. And it's also a lot trickier because the case itself is a lot more complicated by this point. It's taken a lot more turns than previous ones. I'm trying to think of which one it was that we failed out of.
I think we failed the last case. I think the last case is the hardest one in the game.
the Von Karma one?
No. The extra one, the Damon Gant one.
Damon Gant one? Oh my god.
Yeah, that case is super, super hard. It's actually very funny because that's actually the next thing, which is I like that the last case, the last case, the bonus case, you are less fighting Miles Edgeworth and more fighting Damon Gant.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're actually working with Edgeworth at certain points to bring, Gant down. And like it's really great because first of all you get an antagonist that is not the prosecutor, but is somebody who is very entangled with the law and like structural power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Damon Gant, I think, is one of the best like representations of how to present impact in a video game, in any kind of like video game, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, right? Where like Von Karma controls the courtroom. He's basically judge, jury, and executioner, and he will stop you at all costs. And you're on the ropes at all times. Like the verdict is always almost about to be declared.
Yeah.
And it's just the very like out there things that happen that like throw him off. The power of friendship, right? That can overturn him.
A parrot.
But Damon Gant is really scary in the context of the game because he has control over the game. Right? This is, for instance, what makes Monica an amazing villain.
That's what I was thinking too.
Club,
yeah.
Right? Where
yeah.
she controls the game itself, and you have to go outside of the game to actually complete it, right? Damon Gant does this thing where he just sits there and he blinks at you, and you cannot progress the game. He's stopping you. He is stopping you from progressing. He's stopping you from interacting in the only way you are allowed to do so, and you cannot go until he allows you to go.
Yeah.
Right? And he stops the background music at will. He's just like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there is really like there are very few games to me that within their own framework like present how like just how big the power level difference is, and as effectively within like a limited scope, right? I think Final Fantasy VII is actually pretty good about this, where you have Sephiroth and he's like an NPC you can fight with, and he's like God basically, because you're like a puny little idiot with like 10 HP, and he's like 999 damage, 999 damage. And then you fight him at the end of the game, and you feel like you've grown because he's been established as a powerful character, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Or like any way in which the mechanics of the game are like directly tied to the story, right? Because that's where video games I think are like the Gucciest, right? I've brought this up in the past, but one of my favorite levels in all of the Fire Emblem series is the level in Fire Emblem Awakening where all of the troops on the enemy team are demoralized, so their stats go down every turn. Because like it's following a very like dramatic scene, and I think it's that's done maybe the best in all of the games. I also like Three Houses has something like this where in certain routes okay, I say in certain routes, I'm pretty sure it's only the Blue Lions route specifically. When you fight Edelgard, if you put your main character in her attack range, she won't actually attack first until you engage, and I think that's really cool, but she will attack any other character. That kind of stuff tells a lot of story in like very limited amount of like thing. And it's so good. I love that so much. And Ace Attorney is like a masterclass at doing this. Like intentionally or not, I mean I have to assume it intentionally, right? But like they understand how to ramp up the power scale of a game that does not have traditional mechanics. Right? You don't have attack power. You don't have spells. The only thing you have is navigating the game itself. And a character like Damon Gant can just stop you at will. I think that's really cool.
I think it's they just understand the way that this game feels and works, and that is why they can so masterfully manipulate the different mechanics and also the pacing of the game in order to make you really feel the impact. And it's I mean, you can, I don't know, you could criticize it for being a lot of reading, but it's really, really very charming and very good.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is all to say that, like, the writing of Ace Attorney is very good.
Oh, it's amazing. It's so entertaining, and it gives you the feels when it wants to give you the feels, and yeah, I think it's great.
Okay, a small aside, but one thing I do find really funny is that the first game was like localized like very explicitly, like instead of Tokyo or whatever, it takes place in Los Angeles, California, which is I think they say LA, but they definitely say like America.
Yeah.
Or something of the sort. But that, I'm pretty sure that's where all the Japanifornia jokes come from. The fact that it's supposed to take place in LA.
Yeah.
And I like, I think it's really actually very funny that every game past the first one seems to get more and more Japanese, and then they have to figure out ways to work around it. In the second game, the place Maya comes from is called Crying Village, and that it's like a traditional like Japanese village, or a very like traditionalist village where like you have to take a bus to get there. It's like out in the middle of nowhere. There's like waterfalls and nature around, and that makes sense in a Japanese context, right? Anywhere that the trains don't reach is somewhere that's going to be a little bit more rural. It makes absolutely zero sense in an American context for there just to be like a Japanese village like nearby. But at the same time, I think it's very funny. Like, Korean Village is definitely where they had to put some flex in to make it work.
How do we do this, guys?
And it gets funnier in the later games when they go to a Japanese high school and they're like, this is just what a high school looks like, guys. And you're like, this is not what a high school looks like.
It's a private school.
I do think that in the later games, the localization strays away from being so explicit about location, which honestly I think works, just because it's I don't know how explicit the locations were in the original game to begin with.
Sure.
The expectation is of course that it takes place in Tokyo, and that makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you know, it's not it doesn't necessarily, like, we're existing in a fantasy world where the law is like a 3-day maximum.
Yeah.
Right? We can suspend our disbelief a little bit further. It's fine. You can just make up a fantasy or a fake, city wherever. It's not that of that much concern to me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. I mean, to the point where one of the games is literally about Phoenix's like ancestor who does lawyering in like Meiji era Japan. And you're like,
how do we localize this?
That game, by the way, has never been translated.
Well, there you go. We don't localize it.
Yeah. I mean, it may be coming. I think
really?
some leaks said that it might be coming. That one's called Daigyakkuten Saiban. But in any case, I mean, apparently there were a couple of reasons for it not being localized immediately. It's kind of a shame. I there are some Ace Attorney games that I just like wish we had, like that one obviously, and what was the other one? Ace Attorney Investigations 2. We never got that one. We never got an official release of that one.
More.
Although we did get Ace Attorney Investigations 1, which I did play all the way through. And speaking of power scaling, that's a really weird one.
Oh.
It's funny because Ace Attorney Investigations feels a lot more like a regular detective game. Or like a point and click adventure. Actually, well, it's because it is a point and click adventure. You like move miles around the screen and stuff. Yeah. But the final boss of that one is wild. I think he's technically the most powerful character in the Ace Attorney universe. And I won't spoil it because I think we're gonna play it.
Okay.
I think we should play it.
I'm down.
But man, it's something. Let me tell you. Like Ace Attorney goes some places, but this goes places. Yeah. I mean, we touched on like the art a little bit, and how the pixel animation was better. The art style is obviously very iconic, very striking. But the animations themselves are actually also really good. That's like it's one thing to have good art, it's another thing to have good animation, and Ace Attorney has good animation.
Yes. 100%.
They have like a lot of these idle animations and different ranges of motion. Like Meg Meekins has this thing where he just like slaps his hand into his other hand. And it looks very good.
It looks good. You can tell that it looks smoother because they obviously had more frames of animation in that bonus case or whatever. But even I guess the older animations for the original, I don't know, the original cases.
Oh yeah.
They include like just enough frames for you to just, you readily understand what's going on. It might not be smooth, but like, it's readable and good.
This is actually something of a lost art, really, because of the increasing fidelity of games. We're well past the point where, you have to make a game that fits on a cartridge. Or fits on a cartridge that is, like, very small, right? Like a Game Boy cartridge. But it's somewhat of a lost art, this Game Boy Advance era of animation. Where you have just enough to be able to express things in a way that is abstractable enough to be read easily, but not like stop motion or whatever, right?
Right,
like,
yeah.
If you see the original Pokemon games, like they're pretty stilty, right? Like you can tell they could have done with a couple more frames. And by the Game Boy Advance era, they have a lot more frames to work with. Obviously not all of them. But the animations really come alive in a way. You don't have to use as much of your imagination for better or for worse, right?
Yeah.
And Ace Attorney and Fire Emblem are really great examples of this, where they move like pixel animated characters in very limited ways that express things very dynamically. And they know when to cut the sound in too. Like the sound design of Ace Attorney is very good. I mentioned the little like boop, 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 boop thing where they each have like a voice, despite the fact that only the objection lines for certain characters are voiced.
Yeah.
Because they can't fit more voices. Like sound files are huge. Sound, yeah. So yeah, obviously I talked a little bit about before how they have voices. But the rest of the sound is actually also like really good, right? It's punchy. It tells everything it needs to, like the desk slamming sounds.
Yeah.
Really, really choice.
The impact sounds whenever the antagonist gets caught in their lie.
Right, exactly. I also really like that, and this is actually, so the music obviously for Ace Attorney is very good. I think it's very, very well some of the best like soundtracking to a game, just in general.
It's so good, and it loops so well. You know, like you don't get tired of really listening to it.
Yeah, it loops really well, and it they make variations and they ramp it based on what's happening. Like they have different levels of excitement in the piece for different parts of the trial. When you've really got someone on the ropes, you feel good, and you can tell that you're doing well because the like turnabout music is playing. They're like,
yeah.
Right. That's another thing too. Is that Ace Attorney actually has a lot of very little subtle things about it that make it very good at conveying information. Like how the music stops when you object successfully.
Mm-hmm.
You can immediately tell whether or not you've got it.
Yeah. You're like you just feel it, and then the judge will react, and it's like, well,
well, you feel it on an intuitive level. If like the first frame of dialogue goes and the music is still playing, you're like, oh no,
I didn't overturn anything.
Right, exactly. Actually, this is also why I think the Damon Gant being able to stop the music is really intimidating. It's because it's usually a thing only you can do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. You're the one who kind of sets the pace of the game normally, right? You get to choose how fast you do. You read through the stuff and when to present evidence, etc., etc., etc. There are some like minor gripes I have with the game. Like some of the clues and ways to get to those things is a little unintuitive, especially if if you figure something out too early and you try to link something,
oh god, that is
sometimes
the worst.
Sometimes it is just actually harder than if you had not known to begin with.
Yeah.
Which means sometimes we just get stuck because we're like, how do we connect these pieces? They're like, well, this makes sense. This makes sense. I guess we'll just try them all until we get one.
Yeah.
That's actually when I really think about it, that might be the only like huge gripe I have with the game.
I would say so too. Yeah, mechanics wise, that's the only
mechanics wise
that I had. Yeah, but that's so hard to especially for a game like this where you're supposed to piece things together. I feel like most mystery games run into that problem.
I think you're right, and I think that Ace Attorney is pretty good in that it gives you enough clues to figure things out on your own.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you're kind of able to, and it's not that you can piece together everything from the start. Although once you have all the evidence, you can get a pretty clear picture of it. Unless you're in the first few cases where they just show you who did it.
Yeah.
But I like that they give you enough clues, and those clues are like actually part of a well-written mystery, so you can actually be like, oh, I see, this might have been used for this, etc., etc., etc. That makes it feel really satisfying when you figure something out right before Phoenix does. You're like, oh, I'm so smart. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, definitely. When a mystery game can help you feel smart, that's well written.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of joked about this on the episode about Sherlock Holmes, but like Phoenix Wright is a really good Sherlock Holmes game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it gives you all the pieces and it says, figure stuff out.
Yeah, unless you get an updated autopsy report.
Yeah, right. Miles coming in like, oh, haven't you heard? It's time to update the autopsy report.
God.
And you're like, no. Well, I mean, it's funny though, but like, again, that kind of goes back to the way that characters are power scaled, right? The fact that Edgeworth can just come in and update your evidence to mean something else.
Yeah.
It does give him an amount of power over you, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, very cool. All right. Well, I don't really have more to say about this game. I have a lot more to say about the other games, but if I continue talking, my voice will give out because it's been a little while since I've recorded an episode. It's been a little while since I've talked this much. So why don't we wrap up?
Sure. I think that's a pretty good place to tie it all up.
All right. Who are you? Where can we find you on the internet?
I am Swan, also known as Renu. You can find me on Twitch and Instagram and Twitter and all of that at SwanDrawn. My Instagram is swan.drawn because it's so hard to get unified branding these days. And
ain't that the truth?
I think you've had a better time of it than me, thankfully.
I have, yes.
Yeah, which is great. let's see. On my Twitch, we are streaming Monster Hunter Rise this weekend. Otherwise, I usually do art and commissions and stuff. So if you like any of that stuff, come check it out.
Nice. You can find me all the places at Literal Soup. Speaking of unified branding, I am not really sure what I will be up to. I am going to do my best to start streaming semi-regularly again. I have some work deadlines to finish up before I can do that, but all in all, I'm looking forward to being back home, you know?
Ah, that's nice.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything super pressing beyond that, so nice. All right, well, our opening is by Scotchy Network, and our ending is by Takuma Kara. And the Patreons we are thanking this month are Evan Williams, Magpie Miritus, Cherubel, Sean Dow, Frostfall, Claire West, Undead Uncanny, and Bill and Boots. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
We couldn't make the podcast without you. And just as a reminder, we do have a Twitter account at AbsoluteCast, and we have a Discord account, and if you pay attention to those things, you'll get updates about where we're at. Like this one where it's late.
We also have discussions about, anime in general, or just like media that we're involved in that we want to chat with other folks about.
It's a nice place to talk about stuff that I didn't get to talk about on the podcast, like stuff that I missed, but also like stuff that just we're not covering in a topic. It's nice.
Oh yeah, or people will like recommend stuff for us, like manga.
Yeah.
So that's cool too.
I am looking forward to recording the episode about this season because
me too.
It is quite a juicy one.
It's wild.
For various reasons.
Yes.
Oh boy. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. And I guess we'll just we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Ooh, I should play the next Yakuza games.
Oh yes, of course.
また明日ね。